Hey everybody, it's Mitch here. Just wanted to do a quick apology to you all before today's episode as we experienced a little electrical interference whilst recording that will impact the audio during some of the discussions. We hope you're still able to enjoy this instalment of the Board Game Barbecue podcast. Welcome to the Board Game Barbecue podcast, episode number 301. My name is Mitch, and I'm here today thanks to Advent Games and our Patreons. Have a bit of a special episode today because I have some friends here with me, actually in the same room, which is a bizarre occurrence for us and how we're set up.
Is this a bad time to mention that I'm actually imaginary, Mitch? That I'm not your real friend?
Well, a lot of people do say that Sasquatches don't exist. But yes, you've heard there. We have Connor here, who's travelled up all the way from Warrnambool yesterday to be here for PlayCon later this week. So thanks, Con, for joining us. How you doing?
Good. I think it's 1,000 kilometres I worked out that I travelled yesterday. Yeah. So, happy to be here. Caught up with a couple of friends of the podcast yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And, got to play a few games with yourself, our other co-host, and Jules as well. So it might be worth you introducing our other co-host.
Yes, our other co-host indeed is none other than fellow Sydney sider, Lauren. How you doing, Lauren?
Yeah, very good. 30 kilometres, but I made it on the M2, M7.
Hey, it's all commitment.
It was a journey.
It's all commitment. I'm appreciative.
No.
Sometimes it's harder to make those trips than it is like
the big ones.
Yeah, because it's like I'm committed. I bought the plane ticket. I've got the car service, whatever. I bought the new tyres, and then I didn't drive, by the way. I flew, but and then it's just half an hour. I'll do it Monday. I'll do it Tuesday.
Yeah.
You got to psych yourself up for Sydney traffic. That's for sure.
I'm so glad I don't have to try and do it every day. You guys, I don't know how you do it because it's good on the trains. You got good trains here, by the way.
Yeah. Some lines I think are better than others, but I don't mind the trains. I've been using them a bit lately as well. Getting kind of used to it.
No, going on the train is something I have to psych myself up for. Getting on Central, bumping with people. No, at least if you're in your car, this is my domain. There's no.
Yeah. I think if you travel on the trains in Sydney during peak hour, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, sure.
But if you're doing it, if you can manage to travel outside of the peak times, it's quite leisurely. So,
nice little jaunt on, yeah.
So we're kind of like the tip of the PlayCon iceberg because we're all going to be over the next few days leading up to PlayCon. All of the barbecue team will be convening on Sydney and meeting up for whatever pre-activities we need to look after. There's a lot of work to do. I spent, I'm going to say, a little bit of time yesterday punching and boxing and bagging and organising a ridiculous number of games. So that's all ready to go for PlayCon. So I hope anyone who comes along to PlayCon and borrows a game from the library can appreciate that they don't have to punch their own games. They're all done.
Yes, yourself, and Mel did a fantastic job punching, but there is one person that's going to be totally disappointed that they can't come to the punch party anymore.
Yeah,
and that's Dana.
Oh yeah,
she was filthy.
She was looking at. Well, that's why I did it. No, it was just one of those things. Once you got on a roll, I just saw the finish line in the distance, and I said, "Got to get through them. Got to get through all these blocks. Can't leave it half done." So
it's absolutely much like in his marriage. Mitch was punching above his weight.
Indeed. Indeed.
Lauren made that joke, not me, Mitch, by the way.
Well, Mel's a big reason why we actually finished. There was a couple of times where I sort of said, "Should we just stop now?" And she's like, "No, one more box." And when a couple of one more box times, and we're done. So it was all good. It was good. It's good that we've now got that behind us anyway. And I think what we've got left to do leading up to the con is relatively insignificant. Stuff that we're going to only do on the day, i.e. take the games there and that sort of stuff. Otherwise, we're ready. So until Adrian and Jules realise they forgot a major part of the thing and we have to do it for them. But no, so it's going to be good.
I'm excited. It has been a nice build up as well. I feel like, it's sort of been a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and now we're really sort of starting to ramp up. And my excitement's at a fever pitch. So I'm really, really keen.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty amazing. How about you, Lauren?
Well, I feel like everyone getting the notifications that everyone's coming in, and also just the lead up, Patreon party, all sorts of events to look forward to, opportunities to just play games with people. I feel like same deal. The excitement's just creeping up a bit. I don't have as much leave as everyone, so I'll be working into the week a bit, but very keen for the events and the prep nights and day before. Very excited.
Absolutely, it's going to be outrageous. But I think I've got a feeling we're going to be talking about PlayCon for a little while after PlayCon, probably during PlayCon, and moving through it. So why don't we get on to talking about some games, some things that we've been playing over the last little while.
Let's do it.
Do you want to do that, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right.
Okay.
Well, let's kick off with Lauren. What games would you like to talk about?
Well, a game actually that I mentioned just before the pod that I think Connor's going to have some thoughts about. I can see him rubbing his little paws together. He's all excited. So I got the opportunity to play a few games of Magic the Gathering recently. Now, I had played before many, many, many years ago, but my partner James recently acquired, they did the Lord of the Rings special sets for Magic, and he's a die-hard Lord of the Rings fan. So he'd never played Magic before, but he thought if I was going to jump in at any time, this would be it.
Yeah.
So he picked up a few sets and then a few more sets, and you know how it is, but all Lord of the Rings themed. So we set up those decks, and it was, I think, Commander system. You're going to have to fill in the gaps, Connor, because I don't know heaps about Magic the Gathering, but I think it's all in the Commander system. So we played a few games back to back, and the decks were themed, so I was playing as like the bad guys in Lord of the Rings. All the Lord of the Rings super fans are going to be coming out for me because I'm not going to be using any of the.
So not only do you not know Lord of the Rings, you don't know Magic either. Wow, we're in strife here.
This is really just part of the course for me, not really knowing what I'm talking about. So
Lord of the Rings was bad guys, good guys. Like that was it, right?
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah,
100%.
So I'm okay with that.
So I had the kind of primary like special card in my Commander deck was Saruman, and so I had him, and then I had a themed deck around that, and James had, I think it was Samwise Gamgee was his special card, and it was really interesting. I didn't remember a lot of it from the last time I played. I did have a situation where I was kind of like fishing for land cards at the beginning, so I did get a bit of rotten luck. And I think that's maybe what's generally turned me off Magic the Gathering. Because I will say, I think the card combinations and the things that they do with card combos and interactions and rules and ideas for cards are fantastic.
Yeah.
Sensational. The ways cards interact, the way you can look at cards and go, oh gosh, if I use that, then I can discard this, which is going to get me another one of these guys. And then I can use this guy to boost his attack and then boost his attack. And these kind of cascading effects, which are sensational. Absolutely world-class. And they've had many, many years to kind of maybe even refine those and build on those ideas. But I just feel like it's bogged down by the system of the gameplay of Magic the Gathering. Like, I almost wish you could have those cards and those ideas maybe in like a cooperative game or something else that feels like I'm just not milling my deck, or I'm hampered because I don't have land cards to tap to help me get mana, to play things, to draw things. So I really like the ideas in the game. I thought the decks in this Lord of the Rings set were exceptionally thematic. For me, being someone who's not read the books and watched through the movies like twice, so don't know heaps about Lord of the Rings, were really thematic. Really liked it, and definitely see why people do like it. But for me, I just wish they would update the core systems of the gameplay a little to make the game feel a bit more modern, a bit less luck draw heavy kind of thing. And then again, because it is the Commander system, maybe if I was playing that in a 4-player game, so not 1v1, then that would also mitigate a bit of the luck, because I'm not just getting bashed on by my opponent while I'm trying to draw land cards.
Well, one of the favourite ways we've liked to play in the past is either in teams, so 2v2, or even if there's a 3 players, like a 1v1v1. So what ends up happening with that is, I could attack you, like if it's myself, Mitch and me, I could attack you, but then that leaves me open for Mitch to attack. So I need to at least have some monsters there that can block or things like that. So it's it's one of those game systems that I think will stand the test of time. Really, like it's phenomenal. I think with the commander system, it does a really good job does streamline the rules a bit, but it does very much become flavor text or text the game. You're playing. The cards themselves are the game, but you still need to know what the cards do. And at a stage, they didn't even have what the rules of the cards were on them. It would just be it has trample, it has flash, it has this. Yeah. Whereas at least now they've gone back and said, oh, well, trample means that any excess damage then gets transferred onto the user and things like that. It's just, I don't know if it's nostalgia goggles or, because I know I mentioned this a lot on the show, like it's something I did with my dad and things like that and my brothers, and we used to play. But, it's been around for nearly as old as I am, which means it's nearly as old as Dan.
Nothing's as old as Dan.
But and it's funny how you talk about like Lord of the Rings, because there's always this set that I'll be like, I'm not playing, I'm done. And then the next one will draw me in. So the one that was just out recently, Mitch, it was about the Wild West.
Oh, right.
So it was like, cowboys, but then cowboys with magic. And I think one of the sticking points was the cards had guns. So it was like, we've gone all the way from it being this sort of like wizards to now they've got guns. And, they're chock full of ideas. There was one set where it was Transformers. Right. And I was like, oh man, I am in. And we ended up with a couple of cool cards with the Transformers deck. But look, I've often said Magic's really good because, if you wanted to get a bunch of friends together and have a night of fun, it's actually not a bad game to do that with. And also, if you're looking to push it and it's you can play at tournaments, whatever. Now, I'm by no means going to play in a Magic tournament, but I have lots of fun playing it with people who, I will admit, do know the rules and know the rules well. So it is quite snappy, quite quick.
Yeah.
And you know that, I've had a dud round this round, I've had a dud game. We'll just reset and go again. So I think that's where it comes from. It's not meant to be a single game takes half an hour, 45 minutes to play. A single game takes 10 minutes and then you can go and play again. And, people will shuffle cards in and out of their decks and stuff like that. So that's where it comes from. I don't know. Like, I can see both sides, really.
Yeah, right.
What do you reckon about the barrier to entry? Because you were just saying that you play with people that know the rules really well. I mean, James and I for sure were getting rules wrong and doing things incorrectly. There's a lot of keywords. Is there a way that people can get into the game? Are they kind of, this is a beginner-friendly deck, it doesn't have many keywords? Are there those kinds of things? Or you really just need to dive in, really know it and know the words?
Yeah, you're probably better off finding someone that knows the game really well and having them make you and they would know, okay, this is really simple. You're just looking for one thing in this deck and one thing only. They used to have, they don't do it anymore because they've sort of commanders on it, but they used to have starter decks, which would have a really simple core mechanic that ran through the whole deck, and that's what you would play.
Yeah.
And that have some cool cards so that would be rare or whatever. But it's without it's turning into the Magic the Gathering podcast. That's where I'd be going with it. Find someone that knows the game, and then play the different colors as well, because everyone hates blue because blue's like the counter one. Whereas I think people like playing green because it's the big monsters. Black's fun, and white and red are okay.
But how does it work then? So if I was to say, I've never played Magic the Gathering. If I was going to say, the Wild West one, is interesting. Is that just a one-off set that they then release and then off you go? I mean, I know with other Magic the Gathering offerings, it's kind of ongoing and you're constantly buying new cards, new sets, whatever else. How does that work? Will they continue to grow the Lord of the Rings set? Will they continue to grow
So what will happen then is all the cards in the Lord of the Rings set would be out and available, and you can either buy the commander decks or you can buy booster packs or other things to be able to get the cards. Obviously, a lot of it's down to luck because you can open the booster packs. So Well, once that set's done, it's done. They're not going to bring out another. They might revisit it. So quite often the popular ones, like Ravnica, for example, has been really popular. So like Gothic, they've come back to Ravnica and done like, Ravnica, Return to Ravnica or things like that.
Yeah.
But it's not like a traditional game where it's like, I really like this game. I'll buy the expansion to this game. That's done. It's one and done, and then you go from there. So if you're into it because of that specific theme that runs through it, then it's probably not a great idea. The theme on it is like a cool thing that sometimes the mechanics tie into, but in most cases, you're still just playing the same game with a new coat of paint.
Unless you're treating it like a game you return to every so often, where this is my Western deck, this is your Lord of the Rings deck, and once every 3 months we'll play a game of Magic. Maybe in that context, then.
But they don't cross over though, do they?
Oh, you can play whatever you want. Like I can
play my Western deck against
100%.
Lord of the Rings deck.
You don't need to. Okay. I mean, there's going to be. Depends on, again, how far I want to go into it, but there'll be balance issues and stuff like that. But again, if it's just, I like Lord of the Rings, I like Transformers, you like Westerns, Lord of the Rings, we can all play against each other. It doesn't matter because it's still the same system.
Same system.
Just some of the mechanics are present in other cycles. And that's what they call it. The themes are cycles.
Yeah, right.
So the Lord of the Rings cycle, the something Junction, like Thunder, something Junction for the Western one.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, look, there'll be people listening that are going, how can you not like Magic the Gathering? But, they're probably like me who've played it. I've played it longer than I haven't, really, when it comes to that. So, yeah.
That sounds great. Okay. So that's Magic. So, Connor, what's outside of the Magic realm? What have you been up to?
I guess I better talk about something else. Well, again, we played together just before.
Yes.
Was Hues and Clues. And Lauren, we were sort of playing. Jules was here, and we played with your daughter. And then Lauren walked in, and I reckon you were pretty keen to jump in.
Oh, it's such a good game, but you got to do. It's one of those games you got to do the weird house rules where you just make really bizarre clues or make clues about the people.
Well, we didn't have any
abstract
house
ideas.
rules for that, but I still did that anyway. It kind of worked out.
So this is a game where I would love to play it with my family. I mentioned that at the end because it would just become a total, absolute, fight.
Yes.
Because my brother is renowned for terrible clues, like absolute terrible clues. We were cacking off on each other's clues, but his would be shocking. So the one that Mitch gave, he said plum, and then you're like, what did you say? No,
lighter plum.
Okay, we all should know it. So if you just quick rundown. If you haven't played, there's a grid of colours, colour swatches really, and you have a grid, and you're trying to give a clue for a colour. So purple, my brain always goes to Grimace.
Right.
From McDonald's. But, how purple is Grimace? And you go from there. And most people would get that. And you're trying to learn. I just think it's so silly and so fun. You can play with so many people.
Well, and this is the thing with, like I said before, with the plum clue, I was like, well, I could go grape. But then what colour's grape? Grape, it could be green grapes. It could be a red grape. It could, a lot of people think Hubba Bubba is purple for grape. But is the rest of the group going to think, oh, yeah, he's thinking Hubba Bubba grape? It's super hard because there's so many different colours can be the same word.
And also your memory for a specific colour, it tends to be so bad. I can't remember. It was some sort of brand. It was either kind of McDonald's yellow or, KFC red. It was something like that.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, I know exactly what that red is. And it's not, and you pull the picture up, you're like, that is not how I remember it looking in my head.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the fun too. Like I didn't know if I was partially colorblind playing it because I was like, no, that's definitely that color. And then because I'm trying to think what the other one was. Oh, so I had a yellow, and I said minion.
Yeah. And
it looked to me for all money that it was the color of the minions. And then I think Jules picked a different. I was like, oh no, maybe that one's actually closer to the minion color. So again, it's just something silly that you can play, but it's a lot of fun. It's one of those games that I don't think, aside from, unfortunately, like if you do have vision problems around colour, that people just have a good time with.
Yeah, because as you say, unless you do have some sort of visual issue with the colouring, it's open to anybody. Anyone can play. Anyone can guess what colour a thing is, and try and have a shot at it. So, and it is hard because there's so many. Like even within that minion, there's like 8 or 9 different yellows that are all within half of a degree shade of each other. It's like how close could they all be? Some of them I can't even tell the difference. If you look at two right next to each other, it's like they're the same yellow.
And that's what I was going. I was like, oh god, could they pick that one or this one? And it's got the cool thing that Dixit has, where you get points as well if people land within the grid. Yeah. And then you're behooved to at least make it somewhat guessable, as opposed to just being like, oh, I'm just going to say something. As you said, I can just go off the rails and say something totally different, and no one gets a point. Yeah. So yeah, it is. It to me, it has those big Dixit vibes, where you're given the clue. And then you laugh because like, oh, of course it's that one or this, and and then every so often someone will be like, no, it's this one, and like it can't be, and then all of a sudden it is the one that only you've picked, and it goes from there. Yeah.
And that feeling you get when you give a clue, and instantly everyone's way off where you were hoping that would be, and you're like, oh man, straight away, my clues suck.
Yeah,
what have I done? This is terrible.
And that's when you go, lighter plum. Yeah. Oh, okay. Right. Yeah.
Because it only has to be like your imagination of the color only has to be mildly out. It'll put them miles away from the target zone where you're trying to get them to guess.
Yeah, I had that one where I said popcorn, and then I saw where they went, and I was like, oh shoot, buttered popcorn. And it evokes something really different. It's I like as well where you have to add an extra word each time to the clues to elaborate a bit more to get people to guess it. It's neat.
But as we found out too, it can also work against you if you're not quite on song with the you could be like, oh yeah, so okay, it looks like, because I think I said clouds,
yes,
and then I went rain clouds, and you guys went way too far. I was like, oh, I can't, semi-rain cloud, like a drizzle, like, all that type of stuff.
Oh dear, yes. No, this is a good one. Hues and cues. All right. Well, one I will. I'll talk about them in order that I've played. The first one I'm going to bring up is Mini Express, which I was introduced to by Harry. Harry, he probably features a bit on the podcast from playing with us in our community, and I thought it was a good sort of mid-level. If you wanted to play a train game that had that shares feel to it, trying to get shares and things and collect sort of resources as you're moving across the board and building out your train lines, but at the same time, it's not an 18xx overbearing, super heavy. Oh my gosh, I can't play this game, or have to play it for 12 hours, sort of thing. So it was myself and Harry and Peter from our community, and I really enjoyed it. Like I'm not going to say it blew my mind, and all of a sudden I'm like deaf and I'm the train guy. It was fun. It was enjoyable. I played again. Ultimately, what you're doing is you're not playing a single color. Everybody's playing all of the different colors of trains. I think there was 4 different colored train types, and you're moving from east to west across the US as the train line's expanding out into the other regions. You're collecting shares, and you're moving up there's these tracks that are like resource tracks, and each of the cities that you visit as you go through will pump your marker on those resource tracks up higher. And then at the end of the game, the number of shares you have for that particular train type multiplied by the number of resources will get you your end of points. So it's not that complicated. There's another game that was popular with a similar sort of shares mechanism, which was Tallywood Rally. I don't know if either of you have played that. I was really I need to play the game more. The first game I played of it, I was really turned off by the scoring system, because the way that it was calculating your percentage of the shares in the region, how many shares you had in that region, multiplied by the percentage of the shares across the whole. Like, I was just like, what is going on?
Where was your smartphone
I had no smartphone play rate.
No.
And even that doesn't go into the decimal points, right? Which it was required. And I was just like, this is way too complicated. And ever since that game, I've been really reticent to play shares in inverted commas games, because I just find I don't want to do, 4-unit math to work out what my score was at the end of the game. And so I've been a little bit scared off. But Mini Express didn't give me that. It was really simple the way that you calculated it out. It was only a matter of doing a very simple sum with the calculator on the side of the board. And yeah, it was a good fun game.
We played this online a couple of years ago, actually. And I think it was with, myself, Def, Sarah, and I'm pretty sure it was Adrian, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And
easily forgettable.
Especially for those 4 people. What would happen? So there's the point where once all the trains are gone from a section, then you've got to take the stock to then refill the trains.
Yes.
Well, it just so happened that every time I would have to take the last train, and I was giving Sarah all these free stocks. So it is a game where it can be sneaky in terms of if you're not quite clever, it can be super punishing because if you end up always taking that last train, someone gets stocks, and that's effectively points for free.
Yes.
And it's super cheap to be able to do that. While
at the same time, if you're only taking the stocks, you're not moving the trains.
That's right.
Getting the resources up the resource track. So there's a really good balance there.
Yeah. And having that, it does have that vibe of, and again, you've got sort of, Age of Steam, which is sort of the train game a lot of people get into when they first play. It's almost like another stripped down version of that where you're placing the trains across and there's going to be links, you're going to deliver goods, and once those goods are delivered, it's done. Lauren, you've played this a little bit, haven't you, as well?
I've not. I've played a fair few of kind of the cube railed games, but I've not played Mini Express specifically. But
Right.
I've heard really good things. It feels like one that's generally a crowd pleaser. It doesn't have things that are too polarizing. Some of the cube rail games do things that are really weird. Like Prussian Rails was one I spoke about recently on the pod that does a weird thing with turn order where you can basically, your turn can be skipped for the round, and that's really polarizing.
Yeah.
The Mini Express seems
getting skipped.
yes.
Would that be polarizing? I don't think anyone would enjoy having their turns.
No, the person who got all their turns would be they'd be a one pole, and the person with no turns would be the other.
It's a great mechanic. I get several turns in a row. Yeah.
But no, one I've definitely been keen to try.
Yeah. I think you like it. It is. It's sort of. And even the presentation itself, it's presented as a light game. It's got nice colours, all that type of stuff.
That's a big thing for me too, because I've been vocal in the past about how critical I am of the 18XX art theme, which is there is none. And maybe it's a small thing, but I like that in games. I like the that niceness, the prettiness, or whatever. And I don't know why the 18XX people can't go, hey, we're going to get an artist to design some nice, backgrounds or pictures.
Don't need to. Why?
And I get it. They're purists, and that's fine. They just will never have me in their hobby. But so that's Mini Express. So So what else have you got to tell us about, Lauren?
Well, one other game that I've been playing a fair bit in therapy with some of the kiddos is a lovely little harbour game called Hammer Time.
So this was in the mid 90s. There was a rap song.
90s?
Is this way? I'm sure it was mid 90s.
You sure it wasn't 80s?
No, come on, Connie. You're showing your youth now.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah.
MC Hammer. He was, I'm going to say 1991 is my guess. 91, 92.
Well, I do know he revolutionised the parachute pant.
Yes.
So
he did.
And much like his pants, this game is exceptionally loud because what you do in this game is bang a hammer on the side of the box.
Right.
The thing this game does, which is quite cool, quite cute, is you take a bunch of gems and you flip over the board game box, put a little mat on it.
Right.
And then pour all the gems on that, and that's the game, is the actual box. And you use a hammer to knock off some gems, not too many, or it wakes up the dragon and you lose them all, and you're just trying to be the fastest to match coloured gems to your little set cards and win that way.
Yeah, right.
So it's a dexterity-ish game, which are the ones I tend to do in therapy. But it's just really good. It's really good. It's really simple. It's really fun. Play kind of back-to-back games a few times, and there's something to be said about not kind of knowing. It's not like a dexterity game where you get the rhythm of flicking and crocodile, and you're like, I know how hard I have to flick, and I get it. Absolutely not.
You do?
I just agreed. I don't either.
In Hammer Time, I just can't seem. I'm either hitting one down or like 20. There's no in between for me, but really great for kids that like active games. I also actually found, and this is like, therapist in me coming out, but it's great for kind of teaching kids who are maybe very boisterous and overexcitable, just temper themselves a bit, or temper themselves a bit, just kind of You got to tap it, but you can't whack it because then everything's going to go fine. You wake up the dragon and all the gems go back.
I was going to say, probably not a good treatment for people with anger issues, though.
Yeah. The bloody dragon's going to wake up.
I'll fight the dragon.
Yeah, it's dead simple. There's a few extra cards you can add in that add little weird extra rules and a dice and all sorts of things. But if you've got little kids and you're after a Harper game, it's a good one.
Yeah, right. Sounds like a lot of fun. All right, Con.
Yes.
Bring us home.
Bring us home.
Last one before we go into the sizzles.
Well, do you want to talk about the one we played together?
We could do that.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the three of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's do
that one.
So, the Barracks Emperor. Did I say that right? Because I was like the Emperor's Barracks or...
the Barracks Emperors.
The Barracks Emperors. Which is... It's a trick-taking game.
Yes.
But it's an area control trick-taking game.
It's a game that ties your brain in a giant knot. And
when it's a game that even Jules is like, oh man, this is tripping me out. Then you know it's hard. Like it is hard. How many times we play it and it's like, aha, I've won that. It's like, no, Lauren's won that one.
Yeah.
Oh no, Lauren. So yeah.
Can we give a bit of context to how you play this game?
Yeah, I think
probably a good idea. Go, off you go, Lauren. You tell us.
All right. So I liken this game a little bit to Tigris and Euphrates.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a grid board with some emperors around it, and you're going to be playing cards around those emperors to try win that trick. But it's not like a conventional trick-taking game where we do the one trick and it gets resolved. I'm going to put a card on this emperor, which is on my side of the trick, because they always, for example, the left side of the emperor is my side, my card. And then, but later, if it doesn't have, it's only going to get resolved when there's 4 enclosing it, and we kind of resolve that trick. So it might only happen, 3-4 roundabout turns later in the game where finally it gets enclosed. But because it's a big board, if I play something to the left of this emperor, it's actually to the right of the emperor on the other side of that card, which is Connor's. So if I'm playing this card because I'm like, oh, this is going to help me win Emperor A, it's also might be helping Connor win Emperor B, which I don't want. And so what Mitch was saying, it absolutely does your head in trying to work out how the board state is going to change, because not only that, when emperors get resolved, the card that won that is going to be lifted off the board. And so if that happens, that means that another thing doesn't get resolved, or it means that if there's other things that aren't adjacent to anything else, they get lifted off the board. So there's lots of ways the board state will constantly change, much like in Tigris and Euphrates, which is, why the comparison is drawn. But my goodness, I felt like I could not plan a turn ahead. It was entirely tactics, this game.
Yeah, and especially what you're saying there, you might play a high card for a particular colour and going, oh, well, I'll wait, I'll play that there and hopefully someone else will close it off. I don't think they can play, let's say, higher than a blue 8. But then all of a sudden, you've played that blue 8 in someone else's zone. It's 1 for the other emperor. You've then lost that card. It's like, oh, what? So you're playing things out. And it was very swingy because there were turns where you had an incredible turn at one point where Lauren won 3 emperors in one go. And it was just almost like a chain reaction type situation where they were all nearly full, and then they ended up being there was one move and then it closed them all off. But there was also turns where you felt like you were falling really, really far behind. You yourself, Mitch, you said you won 4 in one turn and one in the next.
In the other turn.
Yeah, so it's really swingy. But at the same time, I didn't feel, because it was tactical, it wasn't unfair.
No,
it was swingy, and you are still there's a little bit of take that. Because of the powers of the card. So each card will have a power, and that's related to the strength of the card as well. So 8s or 9s being the highest. Then there were a lot of cards that had some good powers, but you probably weren't going to win too many of those emperors. I just felt it was really cool. I had not played a trick-taking game similar to that before. I think probably Arcs maybe, but Arcs to me didn't lean into the pure trick taking the same way that that this game did. Yeah.
I'm glad you guys talked about it so well, because I still don't know what I was doing in the game. I couldn't tell you what the good strategies were, the bad strategies, or even how to play the game. Sitting next to Jules was tough as well. But no, I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was for anyone who's into trick takers and is exploring the recent sort of resurgence that we've seen in trick taking lately, that wants to see or play a trick taking game that's a little different, maybe a little area control added in, as you're talking about. I think it added a lot there to sort of be different to anything you've played before in that trick taking realm, but still have enough of the sort of traditional trick taking flavour to it to scratch the itch as well.
Totally.
So I think they've done a really good, with the exception of the way that they label the forum, which I couldn't even work out which card I needed to pick up at the end of my turn. Which, if we talk about Great Western Trail, that's probably not an uncommon thing for me. But other than that, I thought the design was done really, really well. The powers, there's 3 main factions in the game, and I thought the powers that came with each of those factions sort of thematically fit with them. Yep. The military ones were more take that-y, sort of attacky. The Senate ones were probably a bit more sort of strategic. I can't even remember really if there was any sort of similarities in the Populace, which is I think the last one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it a lot.
It was good and I think it did take us a little while, which was a learning game for all of us. And we sort of said from the beginning that we were going to learn the rules, not as we went, but we'd probably learn the rules together and go from there. It could be quite snappy if you had players who had played the game before. I think if we played the game, we probably could play it under an hour because it is really straightforward. You're only doing one thing in a turn generally. And, I've been a few times I've mentioned how there's some games where you end up doing so many actions in one turn that it takes forever. I really like games where I play one card and then maybe something resolves, and then I pick up another card and it's done. And that's what the Barracks Emperor has.
Yeah, I found my turns were all just give Jules points and move on. That was pretty clean for me.
Just nice and snappy. Yeah. There's a lot about the game we haven't explained, but a few things that I thought were really interesting was trying to work out when to kind of time playing your powerful cards next to those emperors, because there's also barbarians in the game, which are going to jostle around the board and can cover your really powerful kind of influence cards for that trick or negate them. Another really interesting thing is that if there are 2 cards of the same value, they're going to cancel out and the next highest is going to win. There are so many considerations for timing, working out, and that also just adds to the screwage, because I'm going to play this card, and even though it doesn't help me win Emperor A, it cancels out Connor's 7 on Emperor B, and then so my 6 is not going to win that card. And all these sorts of things that you can do, and ways the game, like the board state changes. Some of the powers for things like swapping positions of cards make it really interesting for, all sorts of things, but meaning so that for this particular Emperor, the Trump suit doesn't matter. So many interesting things to consider. Really interesting. Definitely would play it again.
Yep, I agree.
Yep, 3 from 3.
All right, Barracks Emperor. That's a good wrap. So I said we were going to go on, but we had one more, I think, to talk about that's on our list of the run sheet, and that was with Connor's Caesar Strife.
Yes, really quickly. So talking about trick takers, this is a reverse trick taker where you don't want to win the trick. I'm a big fan of this game because quite often in trick taking games, I like taking the route of I'll win 0 tricks, thank you, and go from there. So that really ties into it. But it's got a couple of nice things where the suits are based around the numbers.
Right.
So in trick takers, if you lead with the suit, you must play that suit. You can also play offsuit if you're the Kraken. So the Kraken is quite high. Now, why you might want to do that is because you can say, okay, I'll win this one trick with the Kraken, but it means that I get to set the next suit for the next round, and I know that I can either make other people take the trick, or you can sort of set the tempo for the next one as well. I just think it's really, really fun. We played quite a few games of it when we were at Adrian's. It was quite popular, and I have been playing a couple of games as well, sort of in my own time. Another cool thing is if you win the trick and you play a particular card, you can then choose whether if you lead off the next time or if someone else does. And that's just a nice little way to be like, okay, I'm going to win this one anyway. I don't really want to, but what I can do is, again, similar to like the Kraken, is say, all right, I'm going to win this with the special star card, and then I'm going to make Lauren lead off. And I think it's really, really cool. So it's a nice, I'd say, I wouldn't say it's a beginner's trick-taking game, because you still need to have that knowledge of, and the other cool aspect is there, as the suits go up in number, there's also fewer of those cards.
Right.
So that's a nice little wrinkle as well. Lauren, you were talking about this as well before we jumped on. What are your thoughts about Seas of Strife?
It's a great game. I've played the original kind of Texas Showdown skin as well. I think the Seas of Strife is a little clearer to read, but I've heard people have the opposite opinion. It's really good. Definitely not beginner trick taker, because there's so much emergent play in it. I feel like it would just be pile on the loser then. If you don't know how to time, you don't know how to short suit yourself efficiently. That's really important in this game, but it's so good. It's very funny when someone gets stuffed over, and it feels amazing when you pull it off and win.
Seas of Strife, stick 'em.
They're different.
Come on.
You're going to make me pick one. You're going to say stick 'em. Like, because it's like, ridiculousness of stick 'em is unmatched, I think.
And you've played both?
Yeah. Stick 'em's funnier.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
In the seat I'm sitting in right now, in this garage I'm sitting right now, stick 'em. I can't go over it.
Because of that experience I go with stick 'em.
At Behold Games, you'll find everything from a Dice Dragon's Dream, classic board games to the latest hits, and TCGs such as Disney Lorcana or Magic the Gathering. Join them for their weekly events with a welcoming crowd. However, if you're after the ultimate gaming vacation, set sail with the Behold Games board game cruise. Play your favourite games all day and enjoy luxurious accommodations and gourmet dining while exploring breathtaking destinations. Visit www.beholdgames.com.au to explore this Sydney-friendly local game store. Or, to book your spot on the board game cruise, check out www.boardgamecruise.com.au.
All right, so let's move on then to our sizzles. I think I might start.
Go for it.
I'm going to take the new ball. I'm going to run with it. So my sizzling game is a bit of a blast from the past. It's not a new game. It's not a really old game either, but it is Raiders of Scythia. And for those of you who maybe don't know, Raiders of Scythia is kind of like a reimagining or a re-skinning of Raiders of the North Sea from Garfield Games. As I understand it, they've taken Raiders of the North Sea. They've added a few of the better expansion and content that was available with Raiders of the North Sea and added into Raiders of Scythia. Not all of them, but it really hit the mark for me because one of the things they did add into it that they hadn't in the original Raiders was the solo mode. So I picked this up the other day. I've been sort of looking at it for a while, and I grabbed a copy, and I've played it a couple of times solo, and I'm thinking, why did I wait so long to play this game? It's the solo mode is so smooth, and the game is such a good game. So to give you a bit of a rundown on how the game plays, it's super simple. No one has specific workers that belong to them, but everybody starts with one worker. The workers are kind of like a resource in the game that you are going to spend and receive. And your entirety of your turn is made up of you place a worker, you take the action of the place that you place the worker, and then you retrieve a worker from the board and you take the action of the spot where you retrieve the worker from. And that's your whole turn. Now, there are a few different things that you can do each time you do those very simple steps. But ultimately, you are collecting resources, building a crew of team members that you then take raiding to different areas, raiding areas for their resources and goods, and then also using those resources and goods to complete quests, which will score you points at the end of the game. And that pretty much sums it up in a nutshell from start to finish. I think this is probably one of the better entry-level worker placement games that are available on the market. it's not complicated unnecessarily. It's as I said, learning what you can and can't do on a turn is super simple because it's just place a worker, pick up a worker, and it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. So, I think this is probably going to annoy a few people, but I think I probably enjoyed the theme and the artwork better in Raiders of Scythia than I do in the Raiders of the North Sea.
Yeah.
Even though the Raiders of the North Sea is the Mikos art, and we all know the Mikos art, and it's very, very identifiable and specific and loved by a lot of people. I think I prefer the style, the theme, and the feel of Raiders of Scythia. The solo mode, for those of you out there that will play these games solo, is super simple. It has a deck of cards that essentially every time it's the solo mode's turn, you turn the card over. There's a process of steps that you work your way down through the card. It says, if this, you're basically looking for conditions. If A, then B. If not A, then C. If not, and it's essentially an if statement. If this, then that, or else do this. And you work your way through it, and you will eventually always get to a solution which is required by the card, and that's their turn. That's it. There's no hard decisions to make. It's very black and white. You just ask a couple of questions, find an answer, do whatever it is. Most of the time, it's either just give them a resource, or give them a victory point, or give them a quest that they've achieved, and then you move on and you play your own turn. So yeah, it was super smooth. I can't say enough about how well they have designed the solo mode. Have either of you guys played Raiders of the North Sea or Scythia?
I've played both.
Yep.
I'm probably one of the rare people who I played Raiders of Scythia first.
Right.
And then only recently played Raiders of the North Sea. So it's kind of a bit like when, like, if you've played a recent video game and gone back, or you've played like the sequel first, you go back and play the episode 1 or whatever. Yeah. And what I really liked is the progression down the board. So you start at the top, and you can only do the actions up the top because you need to start building up effectively your resources and your workers. And then as you go down, you are then effectively going on raids. So it's almost like you're building up your resources at the top
in the
village, and then the raids happen, and that's when you need to have, like you said, your party of raiders, which is your hand of cards, effectively. When you're playing with other people, it becomes a bit like a race, and whoever can race to get those spots first, and that's what Raiders of the North Sea is like as well. It's like, who can make their engine go the quickest to be able to get to those bottom sections as well. Raiders of the North Sea is very similar, and it was striking how much I was like, oh, well, that's each of those sections married up, and it's got, like you said, it's got that mechanic of I place the worker, so I then take that action, I pick up the worker, and I take that action, and then what that means is that you start to unlock more options to place your other workers down, because you've then gotten not a more powerful worker, but a different one that's required for that other space. I think it's great. I think it's a nice little puzzle. It's probably a well-paced puzzle too, because like you said, you're just taking that place action and take action. You're not having to balance a whole lot of things. I think I mostly played it solo as well, and I agree that solo is fantastic. But yeah, no, it's definitely a really, really good game, and I like it a lot.
Lauren?
I've never played Raiders of Scythia, but I have played Raiders of the North Sea. Only I played it first with some expansions and then just the basic game, and I think with expansions you said is what is kind of similar to what Scythia is. I really like the place a worker, take the action, pick up a worker. That's the magic of the game, because I don't want to pick that worker up, even though I really want to do it because I don't want you to be able to do that next, is great.
Yeah.
And was shocked that I hadn't seen that done elsewhere. So I have to time it where I need to be able to put something down but not need to pick that up. Or if I need to be able to do it again multiple times, to time it so I'm picking it up when you can't put down or when you don't need to put down for it, that it makes you think about other people or the people at the table, not just I'm going here and I'm blocking you, but make you think a bit more deeply about what other people are doing and when. And I just found that really, really interesting.
And it's not always a block either, because even if you put a worker there because you want to take that action and block that space, well, they can take that action as the pick up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because putting a worker there means they can pick it up and then take that action anyway. So it's kind of like you can block, but you can't block. It's kind of, it forces them to take their action in a particular way, but it still gives the opportunity that you can take that action if you want. So yeah, it's I don't think I've ever seen that mechanic in any other game. The place and the take.
I feel like one of the more recent ones, so like the South Tigris,
right?
They've used that for Wayfarers. Is that the one I've played? There's that mechanic of you need to place a worker and then you can pick one up. But that's not what you do every turn. That's only if you're wanting to take those specific actions.
Yeah. Right, okay.
Whereas this, you have to take it. It's the core mechanic of the game.
Yeah, right.
Where does it fit for you in terms of other Garphill offerings?
Well, this is an interesting question because I'm not a big Garphill player. I think I've played Architects of the West Kingdom, and that's about it in terms of the Kingdom North Sea series. I've obviously played Hadrian's Wall, which I really, really enjoy. I've played Paladins as well. I think we played that once at Castle Hill.
Yep.
But yeah, I haven't really, I'm not the Tome Saga person that's played all of the Garphills. Maybe I should have, because I really enjoy what I have played. So yeah, it's something worth looking into. But yeah, I really enjoy it. I really feel it's that, if you're talking about entry-level worker placement type games, a lot of people say Everdell, or they'll say, I can't even think of any others, like Wingspan.
Well, even like Architects is probably one that they would mention too, like Architects of the West Kingdom.
They do, yes. Yeah.
Even Stone Age, something even similar.
Wingspan's not even worker placement, so I don't know where they came out. But I really think that, Raiders of Scythia, and maybe even... So you've played North Sea, or seem to have a better recollection of it. I've played both, but I don't really remember much about North Sea and what the difference is. Would you say that one's more appropriate for a sort of entry level than another? Or
I think because there's more going on with some of the expansion content put into Raiders of Scythia, I would probably stick with if someone had not played many board games, in particular hadn't played much worker placement, I think having just that stripped down version, it's still good. There's still a bit of juice in the orange, but it's not as overbearing. There's not as many options, and the game's probably over a bit quicker too. So that's something that you would have to factor in. Because
I don't think that, from memory, I don't think the Raiders of the North Sea has like the horses and the eagles and stuff, because you can get these, we haven't explained that, but you can actually add to your crew of raiders, you can add horses and eagles and different animals and companions and things to boost the powers and abilities of your raiders. So that, I don't think that, from memory...
There's some cards that will let you... Yeah, I don't think, unless there's particular cards that let you boost. I can think of ones where you can have a really strong card, but you can only have one of those, like one warrior card.
Right.
And that's the only one you can have. You can't have another warrior card in your hand until you get rid of it. And there's discarding and then getting the skull, the Valkyrie skull and stuff like that. There's similar things in Scythia. But yeah, I think, like I said, I think it's really fun, snappy.
So that's Raiders of Scythia by Garphill Games. If you think you might enjoy that, check it out. So over to Connor and your sizzling game for the week.
Well, you talked about a bit of a blast from the past. I'm going to talk about a board game barbecue favourite, and that is none other than the Quacks of Quedlinburg. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it is, for a long time, it was sort of this great game that it's nice and quick and everyone has a good time with. And I wanted to go back and see if it really was as fun as I remember, or if it was, those rose tinted glasses I talked about with Magic.
Yep.
Not obviously as severe, because it hasn't been around as long, but, there's certain aspects that might annoy people. So I've gone back and played this a little bit with some friends, and it's still such a great time.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you what, for a game that's a little bit older, even in the base box, there is so much content, so much variation you can play. So for those people who have not played Quacks of Quedlinburg, first of all, change that. Become a play con and get it off the shelf and play it. Whatever you need to do, just do it. But what you're doing is you're building a bag of ingredients, and then drawing from your bag and placing them into your pot because you're a charlatan. And into this pot, you're putting some nice ingredients and also some not as nice. So what ends up happening is sometimes is you will draw out these cherry bombs, and it's okay if you draw out one cherry bomb. It's okay if you end up drawing out 5 cherry bombs, but if you draw over 7, your pot explodes and your turn ends. So you can't draw any more tokens out, and you have to stop, obviously, counting your points at the end of the round. Because at the end of the round, you then have a choice. You can either take some points or you can go to the shop. Now, one of the main strategies is you just push your pot to exploding point and you go and buy those premium ingredients, because the other great part is the cherry bombs are pretty lame, but all the other ingredients have a really, really cool effect when you place them in your pot or at the end. So I've probably talked about this a couple of times, but the one that we always, and actually I'll be interested to see which versions of the ingredients you play, because the one that we always get stuck on playing is the bird skull.
Yeah, the blue ones.
And it's where you can effectively pick and choose which ones that you put back into
you
your...
get to draw them out and look at them before you choose which ones.
It's like we have to, it's like an addiction, right? Like we have to, like, no, we're not playing it with this one, but it's so satisfying to be like, oh no, like I'm going to put that one back in or whatever.
Yeah.
But also, I like seeing if I can find combinations that break and make it really, really good. So there's a few good ones that are in there. But, the Mandrake route's great as well because it lets you skip positions. So you can skip positions and move further up. There's the ones that are the combinations. So you might get certain resources if you draw the combination of like a spider and the I call it like the ghost booger, like this is the purple one, the ghost booger.
Yeah.
And then of course there's the moth, the monarch, where you need to have more than the people who's next to you. So I always talk about, like, in a similar mechanic to Seven Wonders, it becomes an arms race where you're like, oh, you're getting one? Okay, I've got to get one. No, why did you get one? And so I was like, just let me have it. Just let me have it. And then you're going counting, and then it becomes a game on its own because you're playing with the person next to you and be like, how many do you have in your pot? I need to have more than that. I know I've got more in here. You end up diving.
But you're both losing.
Yeah,
the person who got the blue ones is
is dominating. So, like I said, it definitely holds up. It's push your luck 100%, but no one, I never have a bad time with this game.
No.
I don't, and because you almost go, I'm so far behind, I'm going to see how far close I can get to winning. And even if you don't win, which we said before when we were playing, that you were sitting with the 2 biggest losers of the Board Game Barbecue podcast, I never win. So I just like seeing, okay, can I get this engine kind of going? And it is weirdly a little bit of a randomized engine builder where it's like, I've got these chips in my bag. Let me see if I can get it working. Let me see if I can push this to as far as it can go. And sometimes it works, and then sometimes it doesn't. And it has one of the all-time catch-up mechanics in it too, in the Rat Tails.
That's the greatest.
And you go, okay, I'll get to move that far with the Rat Tails. Another one is, so I'm trying to remember which one it is, but one of them is if you have the most, I think it's the purple ones, or if you have a certain number of purple of the ghost boogers, you can move your droplet up. So that becomes really powerful because your starting position from then on in,
it's permanently more.
Yeah. And then you got the herb witches as well, which just adds a little bit more variation. I still haven't played with the Alchemist expansion yet, so if you have, I think it'd be really, really good. But Lauren, what are your thoughts on the Quacks?
Look, I like it a lot, but I will say I have to play it with a really janky combination of ingredients because the game is spoiled for me just to drop if there's one combination that's clearly just better and most optimized than all the others. And then it's kind of like, oh, well, I'm just going to go for that. Yeah. And then it's just going to be who draws the best. But if that's the case, I'll intentionally just fill my bag with garbage and just see what happens because I don't want to just be getting red and orange chips the whole time because it's going to rocket me in a million points.
Yeah.
And leave everyone in the dust. So we play it, and I've got the Herb Witch expansion, and I like it a lot. But I always want to have combinations that are just force you to play the way the game I feel like wants you to, which is just a bit weird and silly and stupid.
So you just randomise the selection
time.
of the ingredients every time. See, I've got a bit of a different experience because my family love this game. We've played it, I couldn't even tell you how many times. And my son Ethan will only play games if we play Quacks. But they've all played that sort of standard set of ingredients so many times that it's become like a warm blanket for them.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, I don't want to change anything. I know what I want to do. I know what they all do, and I don't want to learn anything new. So I just want to stick with what I love. It's like as I said, it's like a warm pair of slippers. Leave it alone. We're going to go that route. So we pretty much always just play the same ingredients as what I think they're the recommended ones when it's
like a starter one. Yeah.
But we do mix in the herb witches, those cards, the additional cards of the herb witches, and also the ability. There's the coin ability, herb witches, where you can purchase. So we add that as a bit of a wrinkle as well. But yeah, they love it, and I enjoy it every time I played it. Like you said, Connor, I've never had a bad game of it. I think it's the one game that would get me disowned if I sold it. I think it'd be out in the streets.
With the comfort of all your coin games.
Exactly.
Games. Yeah. The herb witches is interesting because there's a couple of powers that if you can time it right, you have one of those turns that just gives you that warm feeling of, oh, this is the best turn I've ever played in any game ever. Like, I've just got so much stuff. It might be something like you can, even if you burst, you still get both the points and the money, or it might be double the amount of money that you can spend, so you can go and get that really expensive chip.
Yeah.
But of course, you put that one expensive chip into your bag,
and you never do it. That 6 pumpkin, that pumpkin 6.
It's not in there. You check every time to make sure it's still in there.
Did I put it in there? You just start checking under your mat or whatever.
And it's thematic too, because some of the best soups are made with pumpkin.
They're not soups; they're potions.
Oh, yeah.
Just because you drink your potions like soups.
I would play a reskin of this where you were making soup.
Yeah, like Ratatouille themed. Yeah.
Soups are hunger potions.
Okay, right. Pure hunger.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Awesome. So that's Quacks of Quedlinburg, which leaves us one more sizzle to discuss tonight. Lauren.
Now, my oath for last pod was to play my favourite game of all time to see if it was still, in fact, my favourite game of all time, and that is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. And by golly, I did it, and by golly, it is. It is just so good. I think it was early on when I joined the pod, Connor, and I was thinking about how I was going to talk about it, and you sizzled it quite soon, I think, before I joined the pod, or maybe after.
Yep.
So it's not been talked about heaps on the pod before, but you have sizzled it before. I think the best detective game ever made, bar none, by a mile. It's not even close, and I've played a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, Consulting Detective, there's 4 boxes, each come with a stack of cases. Ranking in order, the best is Baker Street Irregulars, then it's Jack the Ripper, and then it's the original reprint and the blue box Queen's Garden tied.
Can you get them in that order? Like if you had no other...
Yeah, they're all standalone boxes.
Yep.
The original is more kind of quote-unquote beginner-friendly. Some of the other boxes have, like, say there's 10 cases in a box. The first 6 will be standalone, and then the last 4 are kind of packaged together as a sequence of cases you need to do together. So I wouldn't recommend something like the Queen's Garden for people as their first box, because it has a bundle of cases that you need to do together as kind of a little enclosed story. I would recommend probably then maybe the original box. But the Baker Street Irregulars has some mechanisms that just mean that you can get the clues in a more coherent order. It has a way where you have to write down letters, so it blocks off clues. So you're like, well, I can't find out this information yet because I haven't gone and spoken to this person. So that's why I think it's the best box, because it makes better stories. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, you've got a map, some newspapers, a directory of London, and a big old book. And essentially all you do on your turn is pick a location and go there. And you look at the book that's specific to your case that you're doing, which will have some, introductory text, flavor text at the beginning. And if there is someone there with some text for that specific case, then you'll read that information. That's your turn. So you say, okay, well, I'm going to go to number 34 Northwest, right? Because in the newspaper, it said something about some woman and she lives there and I think she'll know something about this case. I'm going to go there and read about it. There's something in the book. Great, let's read it. Sometimes you get a big wall of text and sometimes you get a sentence that they're not home and that's a bummer. And all you're trying to do is, theoretically, get to the clue, figure out the case, theoretically earlier or in fewer turns than Sherlock does, but that's not what you're trying for because the rascal is too good.
And super condescending.
Oh, yeah. He wants you to know that he's smart. He's like... He's that kid in school. I didn't study.
Yeah. Oh, don't you know that? Yeah.
But it's so interesting. There's a few things that I really love. As you progress through those later cases in the box, you have to use newspapers from earlier cases. So you get more and more information. So the cases get a bit harder, which is great. I really like how sandboxy it is. If you think, I read something in the newspaper how there are these people that were caught at the docks and they had fake passports. Like, who would have fake passports? Maybe it's, people at the library. And someone goes, no. Maybe it's the printing press. It would for sure be there. And it just lets you be really creative, make logical leaps. That's the critique some people have of the game, which is that the leaps you have to make are too big.
Right.
But you have, some helpers in your back pocket. You've got some people that you can always go to. You can always go to Mycroft. You can always go visit Sherlock. You can always go to like the police. There's things that you can do and reliable people that will help you out in every case and just give you a little nudge in the right direction. But as I've said before in the pod, I think it's a game best left kind of to a few days. If you feel you get stuck, just stop playing.
Yeah,
just stop playing, come back to it.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't maybe necessarily work in the context of you going to mates for a game night, but if you're playing with a partner, if you've been playing solo, just leave it. Just come back with fresh eyes, like a real detective does, damn it.
Do you feel like when you take those breaks, you're like still turning the case over in your head, going, it could be this, it could be that, or it could be...
Oh, absolutely. I've been lying in bed stirring. Jim's like, what are you doing? It's like, I can't figure it out. And then you wake up to these eureka moments. Oh, gosh. And it's just so good. It is bar none the best writing in any game that I've read. Obviously, Mitch, you've played heaps and heaps of narrative games with lots and lots of writing. I think maybe the only one that, for my taste, has given it a run for its money is Arkham Horror.
Yep. Yeah.
Because it's so immersive and so rich. And
Arkham Horror,
the card game.
The card game?
Yes. I've not played the board game, so not sure. But Adrian's told me that I'm going to visit him in Brisbane shortly, and he's going to play that with James and I. So we'll see how it goes.
Sure. Let's see if he's... Anyway. So I think I talked about this with Ian O'Toole.
Ooh.
Actually, right. Yeah. So and he was a big fan of it as well. And I agree. Like, the leaps are pretty sensible to me. That's the whole point. I think you're supposed to be solving these murder mysteries. Like, it's not going to be easy. You've got to think outside the box. These are supposed to be people who, especially the ones where you're chasing someone like Jack the Ripper. There's a reason why he never got caught.
But are they logical leaps? Like, I mean, I've done a bunch of the exit games and those sorts of things, and some of those I go, are you kidding? I never ever, like, that's like taking the sheet into the bathroom and holding it up against a set of light with, while standing on one leg and spinning in a circle. I never ever would have done that. That's just ridiculous. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
100%. Look, there are some cases that do have particular details where you're like, oh, that is some BS. I would not have got that. But a few things on that. At the end of the case, you kind of just stop when you want to stop. There's no hard deadline. You're like, we've got enough, let's stop. And then there's a bunch of questions, not about just the main case, but also side things that are going on, because there's all these little other tangential stories that are happening that are a little bit red herrings, but also just other things you can find out the answer to or get sidetracked with. And you may think it's important, think it's not important. So at the end, even if you're being asked main questions, you don't know what those questions are, but you're also going to get the opportunity to answer questions to get points against Sherlock for other things that were going on. So even if that one detail means you didn't solve that particular thing, there are still things that you did work out.
Yeah. Right.
And so you don't feel like, oh, well, I didn't get that one answer that I had to get, so I failed 100%. It's not really that black and white.
Which is how I felt when playing Seventh Citadel. But yes.
Yeah. So in Exit, where it's like, well, if I don't work that out, I can't progress with the game at all.
Yeah.
With Consulting Detective, I can keep going to find things other ways, and I can also find out other information. But I find that if you've played a few of the cases, you get into the rhythm a bit more, working out what's going to be relevant, what's not, and get a bit better at the game. But
right.
I think that saves it, and I totally understand what you mean by that.
But sometimes you get to the end of the game, and it's like, what? Bethany, the laundry lady? Like, I don't even met Bethany, the laundry lady. Like, it just didn't occur. So, and I think that's what it is when it's a reward for the people who do go that extra mile and go, oh, I've discovered this, I've discovered that. What did you find? And of course, because you write the answer down and then you open up the envelope, you have to be a little bit lenient to yourself. Like, it might not be word for word, but it's like, oh, okay, like I got the basis of that. Like, that's where I went to. Where did the watch get to? Oh, right, got picked up by the garbage man and things like that. Yeah.
But it also kind of, unless you really hit a wall with not knowing where to go or who to ask, which in instances I think take a break, you can still keep playing the game. Like in Exit, you're like, well, I can't know the next step. You can still go visit places. They may not be giving you the best information. They may be giving you side quest things. You're still playing the game and you still decide when to end. So it never, even if it gets really, really frustrating or whatever, for the most part, I always feel like I can still finish the game and come to a conclusion where, like, okay, we're going to see what the answer is now. We feel like we've got it.
Yeah. So I might not be getting promoted at the end of the week, but at least I'll still take my paycheck home.
Yes.
Not getting fired. Not getting fired. You can punch in on Monday. Yes, so that is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, still just an absolute gem in my collection.
Awesome. All right, guys. It's been a good chat. Let's move on to some news and announcements.
You know that game you've been wanting for a long, long time? The one that's been on your wish list for ages? Yeah, that one. The one you've been adding to your cart and taking off again, umming and ahhing about whether you should get it or not? Well, I'm here to push you over the edge and say go to adventgames.com and add that to your cart right now. I bet you that Dean has a great price on it, he's got great customer service, flat rate shipping, and there's so many other goodies to explore on the website. Wonderful categories all organised to pick the exact game that's right for you and the group that you play with. So head over now, don't hesitate, to adventgames.com.au and add that game to your cart now.
So the first one on our list is talking about, have you heard of this PlayCon?
Oh, I was meant to get tickets. Can I still get tickets?
No, you can't.
Oh, no.
Don't worry, there's no one on the wait list.
It's sold out. But if you get on the wait list, there's about a 1 in 1,000 chance that you'll get one of those tickets. No, it's sold out. If you did want to jump onto the wait list, by all means do so. It's getting quite long, but that's the only way that you might even have a chance of getting in now. It's going to be fantabulous. Can't wait. For those of you that are going on to PlayCon, make sure you log on to the Aftergame app from the App Store, from Google Play Store, and register in there. You can head to the events tab and you can find about all the stuff that's going on at PlayCon. You can schedule your own games, you can book games, you can just be a part of it all. We've got a massive library that have all been punched and bagged and ready to go. Yeah, it's going to be a cracking time. So we can't wait to see you all there and play some games.
Yep.
It's going to be wild. Additionally, we've got the Brisbane Barbecue Game Day, which is coming up on the 17th of August at the Parkview Hotel. So that's getting back to our sort of regular schedule again after PlayCon. So if you're in Brisbane, or if you're the type of person who would like to travel to Brisbane to partake in a game day, by all means, check out Eventbrite for tickets to that one. It's still selling. All right. That brings us along to the question of the pod, which we haven't done in a little while because our last episode was episode 300, where we all just sat around like old folks and reminisced. That was the request of Dan. He said it's the one thing he likes to do more than anything else as an old person. So we did that.
Just imagine. Tell me about the first game day again, Mitch.
Those were the days. I remember back when we used to play with stones in the dirt. All right. So the question of the pod we had from the last episode that had a question of the pod was what game had you in stitches? And I think this came off the back of the crazy shenanigans that I had with my family monikers. So I might throw over to Connor if you can. We're sitting around my game table with a monitor screen up at the end of the.
It's good. I like this setup.
You like this setup?
I feel like I've always wanted to get into sports journalism. And I feel like I'm reading the stats, and then you can see from here. I just need like a to do all the arrows and circles. Yeah. So our first one is from Guppy Jones. So play Wingspan with mates while slightly, come on Guppy, inebriated. If you placed a bird into a habitat, you had to make a noise. The noise you thought it would make, and then share a random made-up fact about how birds species caught each other. We were in stitches so much that we couldn't finish the game. I love that. That is so good. Big Stu McCune. Cryo is a serious Euro game about surviving after crash landing on a hostile planet in the far reach of the galaxy. Unless you play it with Damon Quintel and Scott Rowe B, and then it ends up with everyone laughing about the pink bits.
I'm sure it does. I'm looking at the names in that list and knowing Stuart McCune, I know that they're the type of brains that would find pink bits hilarious.
Scott Roby. Scott, you need to grow up, mate. Like, seriously. Chris Ingold. Operation was a long time ago, but still scarred. Fortunately, I no longer look like the guy on the game board, so it shouldn't happen again. Yes. Excellent. And then, Lauren, do you want to finish off with our last two?
Sure. So Jimmy Bose says, playing Western Legends. You may not think it, but I guess it comes down to the people playing. When you see others put on silly cowboy accents and walking around like they got saddle sores, ready to duel off with someone, it was pretty hilarious. Saddle sores. Don't want to know what that bottle looks like. Not going to ask further. Stephen Fry says, playing Camelot. Absolute cracker. And my mate describes this ridiculous sequence of events which would cause the camel in last place to end up in first. Takes a betting ticket on it just for a laugh, and it all ends up happening almost exactly as predicted. He got up and did a little dance. The rest of the table fell about laughing. Brilliant memory of that one.
So there you have it. Do you guys have any hilarious moments?
I mean, I've had some very, very funny moments in here where I've just lost it. I think I mentioned the one. It doesn't. So much of this doesn't revolve around the actual game. It's the people you play it with. So 100%. I had a moment with Adrian where we were delirious playing Whistle Mountain.
Oh yeah,
and I might have imitated a certain Nintendo character, but not actually done a proper.
A good job of it.
Yeah, I'd used my own accent as opposed to, and Adrian lost it and I lost it. So, yeah, and, just stuff would happen. I think games like Camel Up are perfect for that. Because it's like, what are you doing? Like, you can't take that and then wins. So, yeah, they're good memories.
Absolutely. I mean, I spoke about this briefly when we were chatting last, but I've had some absolute cracking games of monikers. Hilarious. I've also had a lot of laughs in a lot of social deduction games. My friends from high school played a lot of Secret Hitler. We played a lot of Werewolf. And we've just had some hilarious moments where you just did this heated argument of arguing over who's a fascist. And then you take a break. I'm like, would you just like a cup of tea, love? I'm just going to go make some. And this kind of breaking in and out of character, it just has always been joyous and made us laugh a lot.
Yeah.
I just remembered one, you mentioned social deduction games, on the retreat. And what were we playing?
Deception Murder
in Hong Kong. And we're all sitting around going, oh, who could be the murderer? Who could be the murderer? And they'll look up and Mitch is there pointing to the murderer like that. And I lost it. I was like, oh, I'm gone.
There's no rules that says you can't just blatantly tell everyone who the murderer is.
Pointing like so emphatic the point. It was so funny. So yeah,
no one listened to me.
No,
I pointed that game. I must have pointed to about 3 or 4 people because you got to wait for the right time where everyone's looking away from you. Bit of misdirection. Oh, look at the blimp. Get everyone looking away, and then do the big point. Just and everyone was like, no. And I think it put more of a target on me.
Yeah,
people were like, oh, I think he hit him. And I was like, oh, you guys have no idea.
Yeah,
I was the witness, I think, so I knew who it was. But yeah. All right, so that brings us to our next question of the pod. Do you want to, Lauren? I'm going to throw over to you to explain to us, the listeners, why we've decided about this question of the pod.
Well, after our game of the Barracks Emperor, which was a bit bitey and a bit mean, especially with Jules, who was in peak form.
Yeah, I wanted to bite Jules. But that wasn't part of the game. But anyway.
With his sinister laughs and teeth marks on his arm, we decided to have a chat a bit about meanness in games, because that is a game where you can really and truly just screw over someone else. Yep. And Mitch had it out for me in those early rounds with his barbarians, just absolutely ravaging my chances in those early rounds. So I thought, and I think we all agree, that we should talk about, how do you feel about mean games and why? What?
I think I've come around to them. A lot of times it also depends on the game as well. You play a game like Root, you expect it's going to be mean because it's the battle. I'm even looking at a few of your coin games up there. Same thing. I go into those, I'm like, yep, I know it's going to be mean. I know my best laid plans are going to get wiped out, but I've got to come back to it. So I've definitely come around to them a lot more than I probably did at the start. And that's just me sort of growing up a bit. I know it's hard to believe. You've known me for 4 years, Mitch, and I still haven't grown up that much in those 4 years. So, but it's also knowing like that you can do it to someone else as well. Yes. Right? And I think that's kind of where people don't like being mean to others, so they don't like having mean things happen to them. But if you play a game that's mean and you're meant to be mean, sometimes the game isn't fun unless you are mean. So, for example, Stick'em.
I was going to say, I played a game of Stick'em when no one wanted to stick anyone, and I was ready to walk out because, I'm like, the game's called Stick'em. Yeah. You've got to stick 'em.
The title.
Otherwise, the game
It's just
It's just but yeah, I think some good insights there, Connor, to the thing. I think also it depends on the people you're playing with and the mentality going into that. Obviously, there's people who really aren't comfortable with getting their plans messed with or things like that, and then it's not necessarily wrong or right. It's just different tastes, different strokes, different folks. I think also there are different types of mean games. To be like, there's a mean game where you can just ruin other people for the sake of ruining other people, and it doesn't necessarily give you any advantage. Barracks Emperor, sure, you're ruining other people, but you're doing it with the idea that, well, I kind of needed to do that because that's going to benefit my game. It's not so much that I'm just trying to ruin you and make your game miserable. It's that, it's the best option for me. And if I didn't do it, then I kind of disadvantaging myself to avoid, not upsetting you. And that's obviously not going to be a great strategy if you're planning on being competitive in the game. So I can see where people would hate those games where it's just mean for the sake of mean, and maybe don't enjoy those. But I would enjoy any of them. I don't take it that seriously personally. And on a personal level, but I can appreciate where other people might not like that.
I agree with you, but what you both said. It's definitely about the social contract, right? People are coming and they know that this is a game. I'm going to screw over you. You're going to screw over me. Totally fine. We're here to have a good time. So it absolutely depends on the people at the table. But there's also different types of meanness. You're so right, Mitch. I find that when a game's really short and really quick and really light, all levels of mean, I think, is fine. It's you're only playing for 5 minutes. In longer games, I don't mind if things are mean. I just don't want it to stop me from playing the game. Meaning, if you're doing your thing and you can do something that screws me up, sure, that's no dramas. But if it means that there's nothing now I can do, not only am I impeded, but I can't play the game as much, or I'm locked out of options, that's a bit of a drag because I feel like then I experience less. And I don't want to do that to other people either. I don't want to make them not have a good time. I don't care if I, screw someone's plans over, but I don't want to do something that will limit their enjoyment and ability to play the game. Yeah, 100%. Which is maybe why I don't like skirmish games as much, only because I'm like, okay, well, you've got 2 units left on the board. That's maybe not going to be so fun for you because you can't do as much. But in big Euros, if you can do this and block me and take that, that's fine. Sometimes it's a bit tacked on though, right? Sometimes it's a bit like, oh, I just do this, which makes you lose 5 gold. I don't get anything, but I guess you have less gold, so you can't do that thing that you were planning on doing. That's I'm not really into, because what does that add? But if it's adding something like in I keep having to look at the name of the game. The Barracks Emperor. Like you said, Mitch, I'm going to put something here because it benefits me. And it also screws over Lauren, which is also good for me. That's great, right? But if it's just gratuitous, you lose something, I gain nothing. Or if it's something that means, oh, well, I guess your engine is destroyed and for this last 30 minutes of the game, you're not going to be able to do anything. Like, those probably the two things, the ones where I'm like, no.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you can see it in game, like you mentioned the coin games, and I think you can see it in those games that, there's obviously conflict in those games because there's what they're built around. But in a good design, it's made so that it's not, as you say, it's not going to be complete whitewash then for the rest of the game, and that person's completely out of the water. Like there's balance within the conflict. It might, like I just sort of thinking back to a game a couple of weeks ago where we played Indian Abyss, and I invaded Bogota with loads of my insurgents and my guerrillas. But in doing that, I have to expose all my guerrillas.
Yep.
And so it was within the 2 turns, he annihilated my guerrilla force. Right. So I think it really comes down to how is the game designed? Is the conflict within the game done well to fit the game, as you just said, in terms of making sure everybody can still enjoy the game with the conflict, and that's where it can really shine, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. All right, but it doesn't matter what we think.
No,
it
never has, in fact.
It never mattered. It never mattered. So what matters is what the community thinks. And they need to jump online, get onto Facebook or Instagram or X or where else. You got OnlyFans, Connor? I think you're on OnlyFans. No, you should not to mention that. Yeah. All of those platforms, get on there and respond to the how do you feel about mean games and why?
Stuck in a board game rut? Leader Games offers adventures beyond the ordinary. Imagine a woodland war where every creature fights for dominance. That's Root. Or maybe building an empire, then shaping its fate through generations. That's Oath. Leader Games. Unforgettable strategy for every kind of player. Find your next adventure at leadergames.com.
Okay, so moving on to our community plug for the episode. There's a few new Patreon members we need to shout out. So we've got Cameron O'Reilly has joined, Uberface, otherwise known as Tom, from our community has joined, Stephen Hill, and Adrian Chu. So thanks to all of you guys who've jumped on and been a part of supporting us. We really appreciate it. But if you are unable to support via Patreon, don't worry. There's plenty of other ways to do so. You can jump onto Facebook and follow us on the Board Game Barbecue community there, or you can follow us on Twitter or Instagram or any of those areas. And you can even tell your friends how much you enjoy the podcast and suggest that they listen to it, because that probably is the one thing that would be really appreciated to help us grow and get our name out there. And the word of mouth is so important. So if you could do that for us, that would be great. Other than that, come along to the game days, be involved on our Discord server, and just be a part of the board game community, because it's an absolutely fabulous place to be, and you'll make heaps of new friends. And I challenge anyone to find someone who has not enjoyed the barbecue community.
Yep. Agreed.
All right. So that brings us along to the last segment we have now, which is our classic Swear an Oath. We know Lauren has already completed hers, because hers was the Sherlock Holmes new game that she played. And she spoke about the sizzles. I don't remember which version it was. But Lauren, do you want to tell us any more about that, and what will your next oath be?
Yes, it was this second to last case that I have left to do, which is one of the standalones in the Jack the Ripper box.
Right.
Was the one that I played. Don't want to give more details because full of spoilers left, right, and center. I've got my previous oath, which was that I was going to play the same game for a month, which I had to reserve after PlayCon because I'm going to do Spirit Island, Connor, only for a month.
Yes.
But I had too many things. I did finish Gloomhaven, which was why I had to delay that oath. So in the meantime, I'm thinking, what's something I can do up until PlayCon? Because then after PlayCon, it's going to be Spirit Island. And I've got a few button shy games that, if my calculations are correct, should be arriving tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
So I've got Numpsters.
Right.
And
I haven't played that one.
I've also got, gosh, I think it's Tussie Mussy coming
Right,
in.
okay.
So
I think Dan speaks highly of Tussie Mussy.
Yes. Dan, but I'm going to try Numpsters because stuff Dan. No.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I'm going to try Numpsters because it can be played it's a solo only one of kind of rearranging cards in your hand. So provided that comes tomorrow and Ozpost doesn't do me dirty, I'm going to get Numpsters to the table before PlayCon.
Okay, sounds good. Connor.
Yeah, not so good news from my end. My oath was to play Earthborn Rangers. So I haven't played that yet. But I have bought it with me. So I brought it with me to Sydney. So I thought if I had any spare time, if I was just in my hotel room leading up until, I know at PlayCon I'm not going to have any time, but leading up till then, if I've got a spare afternoon or whatever, then I could play it. I will play it the next time I'm on the pod. But I will back it up. And I can see another game that I have actually play tested, I own, and I've punched. And that is Bardwood Grove. So looking on Mitch's...
Fabulous Deck Builder.
Fabulous Deck Builder. I still hate that word. Yes, so the next time on the pod, I will have played Earthborn Rangers and Bardwood Grove.
There you go.
All things going well.
Okay, well, that brings me... Now, so my last oath was to play games and have fun at PlayCon. That's
still ongoing.
It's still ongoing. I haven't completed that one yet. But my one prior to that was to play some more of the Seventh Citadel. So moving on from that, if I need to add a new oath, I don't know what I'll add in there. I need to play something. I haven't even thought about this, to be honest. I'm going to put down play. Everyone refers to this word that's on my Final Girl box, which is Inkanyamba.
No, it's not.
So, I don't know what it is. That big long word. I'm going to play that Inkanyamba version of Final Girl, which I don't think I've played to date. So I'm going to get that out at some point in time before I'm on the pod next and give that a crack. So for all of those that were in hysterics about that game last year,
yes,
while we're here at South by Southwest, I will finally get that out and give it a crack.
That's one of the things where we laughed about a game that we weren't even playing. Like, it had nothing to do with the game we were playing.
Someone told me to read the word out, and I absolutely made him.
You added about 4 more syllables.
Yeah, I did. And it was hilarious. But yeah, so what do I need more opportunity to try and pronounce that word? That'll be my own. All right, so that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you guys for coming along and being part of it.
Yeah, it's good. It's nice doing it like this.
It is.
It's a shame I can't do it more often because I live so far away from it.
Well, we'll just fly you up every week. Yeah. That sounds fine. What do you reckon?
Yep, done.
This might be is this the first time we've recorded a pod in the same place? We did the retreat one. We did that on
live
stage. Yeah, that's kind of a bit cheating. In terms of actually just sitting around a table, we did a retreat, and this might be the only other time I've ever done it, unless anyone else has.
I'm glad it was with you two, by the way.
Absolutely. Wouldn't have done it with anybody else.
No, literally, I wouldn't do that. Don't want to be in a room with them.
Yeah, being in the same room with Dan's a bit rough. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming along. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you again next time. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.